Our next speaker is Judge Stephanie Sawyer. In 2018, Judge Sawyer developed a program called Resource-Based Sentencing and Supervision. As a Court of Common Pleas judge in Philadelphia, Judge Sawyer has focused on restorative justice by targeting judicial changes to sentencing and supervision and utilizing nonprofit organizations and social services to reduce recidivism. Judge Sawyer will explain the useful tools that she uses to apply a trauma-informed and resource-based framework for decision-making in a judicial setting. Welcome, Judge Sawyer.
Well, let's liven things up a little bit. Good afternoon to everybody. First of all, I want you to see that my wonderful interns are going to be here handing out brochures so that we can kind of move forward. So first thing I want you to know is you already know my name. I am Judge Sawyer. I am a Court of Common Pleas judge in Philadelphia. And one thing that I've noticed is that every single jurisdiction has different levels of courts. And so let me give a little contextualization. So in Philadelphia, I was appointed as a municipal court judge, right? And municipal court judges are the lower trial court judge in that jurisdiction. And they handle things like misdemeanors. They handle things, I think it's more like your county courts are here, right? They handle misdemeanors, small claims court, tenant landlord court, preliminary hearings in criminal court. And so that was my appointment, but I had run for the Court of Common Pleas, which is the highest trial court in the state of Pennsylvania. That's the court that handles family court. It handles, in criminal court, they handle felony cases and things of that nature, as well as the higher level civil situations, right? So I hit the bench in 2014 as the municipal court judge, and then later we wound up in the CP bench. And so most of this is an evolution of my time on the bench and a program that was created really just out of me trying to figure out how am I going to be a judge, right? So I wound up through this evolution becoming the board chair and the founder of the Sentencing Foundation. Alicia? So, what is the Sentencing Foundation? The Sentencing Foundation, it is the logistical support for a program, a trauma-informed program called Resource-Based Sentencing and Supervision, right? It does everything that that program needs to operate. And so to properly understand exactly what the resource-based sentencing and supervision is and how the Sentencing Foundation is its logistical support, you kind of have to understand and follow with me and understand the evolution of how the program was actually created. Next, Alicia. So, what is resource-based sentencing and supervision? At its core, it is a system of accountability whereby the sentencing and supervising judge is accountable to articulate a comprehensive sentence. When I say comprehensive sentence, right, when I'm on the bench, I say a comprehensive sentence. I see somebody that I'm sentencing for 2 possession with intent to delivers, right, and a 10th grade education. Well, we can set our watch till their 3rd. It is time for judges and the judicial system to stop acting like we don't already know that. And so resource-based sentencing and supervision holds every player inside of the courtroom accountable to do what they're supposed to do, right? The sentencing and supervising judge is held accountable to articulate a comprehensive sentence that actually addresses the reasons for the offense. And for every condition, they have to provide a cost-free resource for the defendant to have an opportunity to meet that condition. And critically thereafter, they have to check on them. You can't give people a bunch of resources and just tell them, go do better. Because if they could do that, they wouldn't be in front of you in the first place. So it's time for us to actually put implementations in place that actually realizes this on a meaningful way. The defendant is responsible, is held accountable to actually reimagine their life in the process of their supervision. Imagine, what if you weren't a drug addict? Imagine if you didn't sell drugs. What would you do then? The defendant is responsible for actually doing the hard work of reimagining their life, right? Resource-based sentencing and supervision understands this principle right here, and that is, you can't just tell people to pull themselves up by the bootstraps, knowing full well they don't have any boots. So I'm in the business of passing out boots and making people pull them up. It is, the resource is to be held accountable in this particular posture. How? Every resource that connects with the Sentencing Foundation and is part of the resource network that is provided in the resource-based sentencing and supervision, they have 3 commandments they have to follow, right? They have to be respectful. What does that mean? That means when they walk in that front door, they have to say, hey, good morning, good afternoon, have a seat there, I'll be without you. Not sit over there, I'll see you when I get to you, right? They have to be respectful and understand the demographic with which they work and treat people the way you would want to be treated if you were in that situation. People act like it's complicated, but in fact, it's truly not complicated, right? Put yourself in those shoes and say, how would I want to be treated when I walk in that door? So respectful, responsive, meaning responsive to the people that are being referred to you from the courtroom and responsive to the judge that makes the referral, because at the subsequent status listing, there has to be an accountability, not just for the defendant's conduct, but as well the conduct of the resource you referred them to. How in the world will we know that they remain efficacious? All of us in here are from the perspective of understanding the importance of how mental health affect those that are involved in the criminal justice system, right? So we can all say right? So in understanding that a lot of folks that have mental health issues, and listen, there's a wide range of mental health issues we're talking about, right? It comes from me sitting in the bench since 2014, I can tell you probably 90%, I would say 99% of the folks that walk into my courtroom minimally have post-traumatic stress disorder, right? And then it just goes up from there, from maybe ADHD, I'm saying it the wrong, someone help me out. ADHD, that's the one, right? So obviously I am not a mental health professional, but I tell people all the time, if you want somebody to interpret a statute, I'm your girl. But when it comes to the actual acronyms of the mental health statute, I leave that to folks that do that, right? So from not just the issue of post-traumatic stress disorder, it goes to a more serious mental health impairments like schizophrenia and things of that nature. But that plays a huge role in folks that become criminal justice involved, right? So the resources have to be respectful. They have to be responsive to both the judge and the defendant that's being referred. And they have to do the third thing, which is keep their word and deliver the service they say they're going to deliver, right? It's been my experience over 10 years of doing this that the most efficacious resources are actually run by formerly criminally injustice involved individuals. Why? Who better to help usher someone through an issue than somebody who's already been to and through that issue? So the other party are the attorneys, right? The attorneys have to get the referrals from the judge. They have to contact their clients and they have to say, hey, Judge Sawyer ordered you to do X, Y, and Z. How far are you on it? Your next status listing is at such and such date. Do you have the proof that you've actually shown up? Did you do the things you're supposed to do? The attorneys are held responsible to not speak to their clients at the bar of the court, which does sometimes happen, but they, get a few words from me for doing that. They should be staying in contact, because a lot of them, especially the ones that are privately retained, I find it offensive that you can collect money for somebody to look after their interest in a courtroom, but then when you get to the courtroom, you have no idea at all what's going on with them until they actually get to the bar of the court. So that's another thing that we hold them accountable for. And probation and parole are held accountable to assist the judge in the supervision and depart from being solely saddled with the stewardship of the supervision of the subsequent supervision after the sentence. Thank you. Next. So the specific issues that this program was designed to address is 2 of them. The issue of moving the needle on mass incarceration. And so when I created this program, it was specifically because as a woman of color, the issue of mass incarceration was an offensive one to me, right? And so we knew back in the 80s and 90s, the proliferation of mass incarceration went from about here to kaboom, all the way up here. And here we are in 2023, essentially maintaining those numbers. So I had to, in the developmental stage of this program, think to myself, what are we as a system doing that maintains a system of mass incarceration? And I just took a look at the general path, right? The typical path that happens when a person is found guilty or pleads guilty, they all have to face a sentencing judge, right? And when they face that sentencing judge, typically speaking, except for carve-outs, right? Carve-outs are, oh, you have mental health issues, let's carve them out of the criminal justice system and create mental health court. Or, hey, you're a veteran, you served this country honorably, let's carve them out of the criminal justice system, and they have veterans courts. Popping up also drug treatment courts. Those are what we call carve-outs, and we'll get to those later if time permits. But except for the carve-outs, the general path is once they face that sentencing judge will sentence them to probation, and off to a probation officer they go. If not probation, incarceration, and then off to the Department of Correction they go. And 97% or so get out, and off to a parole officer they go. And those that have a combination of both, after their incarceral period, off to a probation officer they go. And the next time the judge who sentenced that person sees that person is when probation and parole are so frustrated they opine revocation, or they court a new case, or they have a new conviction. In those three scenarios, what's going to happen? The next time they see the judge, it's time to punish them again. Ladies and gentlemen, I did not take this job just to punish people. I took this job to help people, right? If judges are only there for punishment purposes and never part of the solution, then this is how we maintain a system of mass incarceration. Additionally, nobody will tell you that the ordinary citizen doesn't have a huge trust gap with the criminal justice system. Raise your hand. Anybody in here think there's not a huge trust gap between ordinary citizens and the criminal justice system? Anybody? Of course not. This allows judges to be part of the solution. This allows us to begin to shrink that trust gap between ordinary citizens and the criminal justice system. And that is the exact reasons why we started the Sentencing Foundation. The evolution of this program, to fully understand it, I wanted to kind of give you all a little context, right? I didn't start in 2014 saying, hey, let me come up with a program that reduces mass incarceration and shrinks the trust gap between ordinary citizens and the criminal justice system. Nope, didn't enter my mind at all. What entered my mind is, now I'm an elected official. I made promises on the campaign trail to be fairness upon which every Philadelphian could depend upon. And so now I had to deliver that promise. And I had to figure out, how would I do that, right? So when we first figured out, okay, I'm not going to be here just to punish folks. So what do, right? So for those of you who don't know, when you get appointed, right, every 2 years, whenever the elections come by, you have to win your own term. So I was a little distracted between 2014 and 2016 because I had given up an almost 2-decade legal practice in order to accept this appointment. And I was a single parent of 2 children. And so once you close your office and give up all your clients, you're all in on that next chapter in your life, which is where I was. And so I had to figure out how to actually win my election, which I did, thankfully, in 2015. But at any rate, from 2014 to 2016, I was kind of focused on that. And so only a few cases that screamed out to me, this needed an unconventional sentence. And I said, okay, I see the need over here. Let me require this as part of the sentence. Let me provide this resource and let me do some follow-up. And I was astounded at the response from the defendant. I was astounded at how I watched the few people that I did this with work so well. And so I coupled that with the understanding of what how a system of mass incarceration can be maintained in the way that we talked about earlier. And so then I said in 2016, then I was a lot less distracted. At that point, I said, how can I figure out how to do this with everybody, right? And so from 2016 to 2018, we began the business of creating protocols and having a sentencing sheet that pulled out all the information as to, do they have children? Are there mental health issues? Are there drug addiction issues involved, right? Because you cannot expect that a person who has a drug addiction issue or a mental health issue, you can't give them a job because they can't keep it. Right? So it has to be a holistic approach. And so we began about the business of figuring out how to actually implement this in our courtroom. And it took us from 2016 to 2018. By 2018, tell you this, we didn't even have a name for it. We didn't even know what to call it until the end of 2017, early 2018. But by 2018, we created this book. It's called Resource-Based Sentencing and Supervision. It has an overview, frequently asked questions, it has protocols, and all of the things I'm talking about on how a judge can seamlessly begin to run this in their courtroom. Incidentally, that's why we're sitting over there with all these interns, because we're waiting to sign up those of you that understand that this is how you actually become part of the solution to helping those in your courtroom. You know, when I talk about the trust gap between ordinary citizens and the criminal justice system, who in here has heard of people that are under the supervision of a judge and not on their list that run to their courtroom and want to talk to the judge? Hey, where's that paper you gave me? The resource you gave me, they didn't respond. This happens regularly in my courtroom. Regularly, people come in and say, where's Judge Sawyer? I need help. If there are no lawyers involved, we have to handle it. You know, we have to make sure that record is running. We have to make sure that there's no ex parte communications. We have to do all the things that those of you out here that are judges, you understand the issues that we have to address. But I watch that trust gap shrink. Those under my supervision, they trust me. They know that I'm only here for their success. So from 2018 to 2020, I began running the program because I had the protocols, and I cannot tell you all how many parents and loved ones with tears in their eyes are in the back of my courtroom, thanking me, mouthing, thank you. I can't believe the changes that I've seen in my loved ones, right? I can't tell you how many people who are under my supervision that told me, Judge, this is the longest I've ever been out of jail. Judge, this is the longest I've ever been sober. Judge, this is the longest I've ever held a job. Judge, this is the first apartment or housing of my own I've ever had. I can't tell you, it's countless things that have happened that way. And so when I realized how well this program was working in my courtroom, I began to get a bit of a deflated feeling, right? And you're probably wondering, well, why were you deflated? Your program worked. Because I had to realize my place in the sun. I am one of 20 or 30 courtrooms that run in the city of Philadelphia. The city of Philadelphia is the first judicial district of Pennsylvania, which is one of 197 judicial districts in one state that doesn't include the federal system. So I could run this program till I'm blue in the face, and it will have no effect on moving the needle on mass incarceration. It will have no effect on actually improving the public's confidence in the judiciary, specifically the criminal justice system. That's where the deflated feeling came from. And so I had to think to myself in 2020, which was right around the pandemic, because I had a little extra time at home like everybody else, right? And during that little extra time at home, like everyone else, I had to contemplate, how can I get this program in every criminal courtroom, state or federal, no matter what? And so I had to think, and I had to say, okay, well, we had to first make sure that the resource section was applicable to the jurisdiction in which it was trying to be used. We had to make sure that the judges that wanted to use them would be properly trained. We had to make sure that it was ever evolving protocols and that it was ever evolving in terms of vetting and re-vetting programs. Because you can find a wonderful reentry resource, right? You can find a great mental health specialist, a program that does mental health, right? What happens when your best therapists leave? Anybody? Well, I'll answer that. The program doesn't work as well anymore. So that's the reason why it has to be vetted and re-vetted. So it's a constant evolution of making sure that best practices are constantly evolving and that best resources are constantly available in the reentry resource. And so by September 13th of 2022, we finally were able to do it. We put together a nonprofit organization, right, with a wonderful board. My vice chair is Councilman Isaiah Thomas, who is the one who is responsible for the Drive and Equity Bill. We've got the reentry director for the city of Philadelphia, Sada Thomas, and we've got a few lived experience folks on there, a well-rounded board. And for those of you that are interested in all the board members, you can go to sentencingfoundation.org. All of the information for the Sentencing Foundation is there. And on September 13th, 2022, we were able to announce the Sentencing Foundation as a nonprofit organization that had all its paperwork in. By February of 2023, just this year, we achieved our nonprofit status, and we were a fully formed nonprofit organization that is the logistical support for resource-based sentencing and supervision. Now, today, where are we today? Now, mind you, February of this year, we have reached out to countless people, and we're here today talking to you and hopefully reaching some other judges that are like-minded. We now have Judge Hernandez, who I don't know if she's arrived yet, but she should be here soon. Judge Hernandez is in Austin, Texas, and she is our anchor judge. She's our Texas anchor judge, and so now currently our program is running not only in Philadelphia, but it's also running in Austin, Texas. We also have joining us from our Philadelphia contingency is our judge-elect, Carolyn Turner. She's over here with us as well. We have about 4 or 5 judges that run the program in their courtroom in Philadelphia. We have Judge Hernandez, who runs the program in Austin, Texas. We currently have, I gotta get glasses because I don't want to forget anybody. Thank you. We currently also have, we have judges waiting on binders because they've already told us they would like to run the program. We have a judge, we have, I think, 2 or 3 judges in Houston that we're waiting for binders. We have a judge in Memphis, Tennessee that is waiting for binders. And we have a judge in New Rochelle, New York that are waiting for binders. So by December of this year, resource-based sentencing and supervision with the logistical support of the Sentencing Foundation will be in 6 jurisdictions by the end of this first year. Thank you. It is our hope that coming to a judicial summit of this magnitude, we're already talking to folks that traveled here to talk about mental health. So I'm assuming there's got to be some like-minded judges in here. And let me be clear, we don't seek to change anybody's mind or advocate in any way. We seek to be a resource. We seek to show you what we're doing and show you how seamlessly, if you're interested, you too can be part of the solution on the huge trust gap between ordinary citizens in the criminal justice system as well as mass incarceration by utilizing this trauma-informed program. So that's where we are currently. Oh, I forgot also, we also have quite a few judges that we haven't yet spoken to. In other words, we've had judges referred to us that said, oh, they would love to hear about this program, and we're in the process of now getting them in front of me. You know what, you guys have mosquitoes that are unbelievable.
Thank you.
No, I mean this sincerely. Like, we had a bout with them last evening in our accommodations, but let's get back to, let me get on point because I'm running out of time. I just happened to feel one over here and I said, okay, all right, let's get back to where we were. Next slide. And it won't leave me alone. Okay, so why is the program indeed a trauma-informed program? Here's the big part of it, right? This program is predicated upon the fact that cookie-cutter justice is no justice at all, right? Because the individualized nature of the program is why its efficacy is, from my opinion, out, or, just over the top, right? And so what we try to understand is that, and let me go back to what I talked about with the carve-outs, right? I think that those of us that are interested in running specialty courts, there are diversionary programs and there are specialty courts. Diversionary programs are always worth doing because you might have somebody that doesn't necessarily need to be convicted of anything, right? But specialty courts while they're a wonderful step in the right direction, it's a recognition that we have to do something different because the circumstances with somebody that's going on with that person is different. But at the same time, it says, let's take a trait, mental health, for example. People that have mental health issues generally act like this, right? It takes that generally out of it, and it has a comprehensive sentence that's designed for that person in front of them. The individual nature of it, it removes the cookie cutter justice kind of approach, because cookie cutter justice, in my view, is no justice at all. There also is an understanding that you have to deal with the whole person, right? And that there's a hierarchy and prioritization of what order you address what's going on. So if I have somebody in front of me that does have a 10th grade education, and does have children, but also has mental health issues or has drug treatment needs, like I said before, you can't give them a job because they won't keep it, right? You have to have a hierarchy of what the priority is. You have to first stabilize the drug addiction issue, stabilize the mental health issue, and then you can begin to teach them how to be actors in their own lives. What I tell the defendants in my courtroom all the time is there are two kinds of people. They're actors and they're reactors, right? Reactors are, oh goodness, the lights went off, I have to get them put back on. Oh my goodness, Johnny's acting up in school, I've got to go there and deal with it. There's a brick, duck, that kind of thing, right? That's a reactor. You're reacting to the external, like right now, I'm swatting a fly that won't leave, a mosquito that won't leave me alone. I wouldn't have normally come up here and waved my hands around. I'm reacting to what's happening to me right now, right? And then there are actors. Those are people that put things in place and they decide how their lives are going to move forward, right? We teach defendants to be actors in their own lives. Now, let me make one other point, because I don't want anybody to leave this thinking, oh, we're going to apply resource-based sentencing and supervision in all cases. No, that's not true. Like, I don't have a problem at all with incarceration. Incarceration is necessary to keep the rest of us safe. There are some people that are so broken that no matter what you do, they're only going to reap havoc on the rest of us. I just sentenced this young man, well, not young man, he's older man, actually. He was probably in his early 60s, late 50s, right? I sentenced him to 15 to 30 years, and I consec the other charge. You know why? Because he was serving 7.5 to 15 years for molesting a child, and I was to sentence him for molesting the sibling of that child. And at the sentencing, we found out that he had been doing this for the last 30 or 40 years because he had multiple convictions for the same kind of nonsense, right? And I looked that man in the face and I told him, sir, I believe in second chances. Sir, I believe in resource-based sentencing and supervision, but I don't have a program for you, sir. You're going to jail. And that's the difference. There's no criminologist that will tell you, a statistician that deals with criminology, that will tell you that everyone is the kind of person that I had to sentence that day, right? In fact, they'll tell you 7 to 10% is what I say. Some might say 15%, right? I'll take the larger number, even though I don't believe it's 15%. I think it's closer to 10% of the folks that offend that are going to inevitably continue to reoffend, because let's face it, there are some bad people, right? And we got to protect society from the rest of them. That's part of your job as a judge. It's not a pleasant part of it, but it's a necessary part of it, right? But if 15% are that means 85% need resource-based sentencing and supervision. Next slide. So, how can interested judges get started? Well, first thing you do, go right over to our table over there. We have registration forms. Once a judge gets registered, you will have a binder created that will have a resource section that's specific to your jurisdiction. You will be able to, on a monthly basis, join our virtual comprehensive training so that you can seamlessly start this. In the binder is not just the overview of the program and the frequently asked questions. There are also a quick start. It's just 5 pages that gives you an idea how to quickly begin to start utilizing this program in your courtroom immediately as soon as you get this binder. There are also supports that we have for them. So in other words, we are able to, on a regular basis, work together to vet the best programs. For example, a lot of judges say to me that are getting started now, how do I get the defendants engaged in the program, is what they ask me. Look, my time is short, so I can't get into all of that. I will be available for questions. I think we have a few minutes left in this segment. No, we have also another piece coming on. I have a few minutes left in this segment for Q&As, so write your questions down when we finish it. The other issue is we have another person that we wanted, I'm sorry, I'm a little disjointed a little bit because I want to finish a couple of things. If you look at the bottom right there, just to give you an idea of how the Sentencing Foundation works, there's 3 different units, right? The first unit is about the establishment unit. That's for judges who want to get involved right away, how you get registered, how you get the information, how you get to run it in your courtroom, the comprehensive tutorials, all that stuff happens in the establishment unit. The maintenance unit is when we get to recertification as to get certified, recertified, and that allows judges, because there are some what you call areas of reentry resource desert areas where there are just not a lot of reentry resources available. And so hopefully in the future, the Sentencing Foundation wishes to be able to provide gap resources to some participating judges that become certified so that they can make sure that the cost-free resource that is needed to fulfill the comprehensive sentence that is provided is able to do that. And that's the whole logistical part that the Sentencing Foundation provides. Got me water? Okay. I think there's some over there. Yeah, my mouth is getting extra dry here. The integrity unit, folks are asking themselves, well, how do we know that these resources work the way they're supposed to? How do we know that judges are applying the program the way they're supposed to? That would be the job of the integrity unit. And just really quickly to give you the structure, that's why we put this last slide on, to take a look at what that structure of the Sentencing Foundation's duties to be the logistical support for the program, so that the judges, I got it. I got it. Hopefully that's the only one that's going to be interrupting me tonight. Excuse me, this afternoon. So anyway, so the integrity unit is to make sure. Thank you so much. A key component, thank you. A key component to making sure that the program runs smoothly is that we have to make sure that the resources are providing the input to the judges at the subsequent status listings, right? And so we have right now we have the program verification forms again in the packet and the attendance sheets that they have to bring in. But defendants many times they lose their attendance sheets. Thank you. They lose their attendance sheets, or they lose their program verification forms. So how are we able to make sure that happens? Well, we have an exciting new partner. Next slide. We have an exciting new partner. It's the accountability program. Remy DeMarco, who is the executive director of the accountability program, will give you a little bit of information on that. And it is a wonderful way that will seamlessly make these status listings easy, because in real time electronically, they will be able to provide the status listings, not the status listings, the updates from the resources. And with that, do we have Remy on? There she is. And Remy DeMarco is right here. I'm going to take it over to Remy. She's got another 5 to 7 minutes, and she's going to tell you about the accountability program that has an exciting MOU with the Sentencing Foundation to make it even easier for judges to use this program. Remy?
Hello, everyone. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, good. Hi. So yes, my name is Remy. I am the executive director of the Accountability Project. So the Accountability Project is here to provide the digital attendance-based records for this system. So part of what Judge Sawyer was saying is that keeping track of these individuals in these programs to provide interventions is so important, of course, but we have to do that in a timely manner. Currently, a lot of these programs that we send people to, whether it's job training or substance abuse treatment or whatever types of outpatient services, very often they're using paper attendance sheets that are then getting back to the court like at the end of the week or maybe the next week. There's a gap. And unfortunately, that means that a lot of things can happen in the time period of that gap, especially when you have people who are, for example, struggling with addiction issues. So if Judge Sawyer has somebody who is supposed to be going to a drug treatment program, and she doesn't know until a week or 10 days out that the person hasn't been showing up, it is very likely that by that time, the person will have started using it again, violated in some way, done something to get themselves ejected from the Sentencing Foundation programming, and possibly reincarcerated. With a real-time digital check-in, we can have friendly day of check-ins that aren't punitive, that aren't, hey, you messed up, hey, you're going to go back to jail, but that are just very genuinely like, hey, what happened today? And then we can troubleshoot with clients in a real-time setting. Are you missing because this program is totally a bad fit for you? Okay, let's work something out. Are you missing because you're having childcare issues? You're having, transportation issues, something that we can help troubleshoot with you to get you to where you need to be so that you can continue on in this program. And that's what our services provide, is that real-time digital attendance. Can I go to my next slide, please?
Do we have
The
slide?
next slide.
I was going to say that
My-
that's the rest of my slides. Do we have her slides?
There we go. Thank you. Next slide, please. Okay, so this logo here is what the app looks like on the client's phone. So the clients, the defendants, will download an app onto their phone that will be linked to their account so that they can use a QR code snap to snap in and out of every class that they have to attend. The reason they snap in and out is we've gotten feedback that if we only do sign-ins, people have the wiggle room to, quote, go to the bathroom and then just never come back and not complete the rest of that day's class. So you have to be present to snap in at the beginning of class, but also to snap out at the end of class, and that makes sure that we're getting the entire attendance time. Next slide, please. So from the user end, from the judges, the treatment providers, the counselors, the case managers, you're going to access the system through the internet. It is just a website. It's just asetcheckin.com. This means that you'll be able to access it without having to download any fancy programming. I know a lot of facilities, especially healthcare facilities, have firewalls and, extension blockers that you can't necessarily download certain programs. So there's nothing to download here. It's just asetcheckin.com. We have one provider that does a lot of job training that is field work. They're on site a lot. They're on site at farms a lot. So they don't have to worry about having a computer hookup. They, the trainers, the professors have phones, and they can just go to ASET check-in on their phone. So that's, really easy to access in that way. Next slide, please. When you log in, you're going to go to your homepage that says Happy Wednesday, Remy, and let you know, if you have any outstanding participants that are missing from stuff. Next slide, please. And then you're going to put in your appointments, whether those are recurring appointments or you have the option for singular appointments. These can be classes that are just for one individual, or they can be classes for multiple people. You would create the class, put in the start and end time of it, and when it ends. And then at the time of the class, you would go to your recurring appointments and click on that class. Next slide, please. This is what a class looks like. You'd have the name of the class up front, and I don't know if you can see it from being shared on a big screen, but that box in the center where you have a 0%, that is a color-coded rainbow, like a credit score. As people sign into the class, it will fill in green for attending, and at the end of the class, anything left over will fill in red for missed. So you'll be able to see at a glance when you open the page, a color wheel of how many people attended in each session. If you were to click on the word attending underneath where it says dashboard, you'd get a list of all the participants that are in that class, and there'd be a little color-coded box next to each of their names explaining whether they were green for present or red for absent at their last session. Next slide, please. You can also check on individual participants. This is what Judge Sawyer would be doing if it was court day and she needed to see how Andrew Android, that's our first one there, how Andrew Android was doing this week. She would be able to go to her participant screen and click on him and see how he was doing over time over the past week or so. Next slide. Thank you. This is an example of, this is actually a real client. I changed the name, who was doing awesome. As you can see, you look at a glance and you see that from August to February, we've got dates there from, and everything is green. This color-coded system is really easy so that judges, case managers, whoever can at a glance just look and say, wow, they're doing great. And it's all right there for you, color coordinated. If you ever want a more specific printout, you can run this as an Excel sheet that is, not color coded. But for me, I tend to just use the boxes because it's visual, it's easy, it's quick to see. And then an example of what a more complex color code would look like. Next slide, please. So this is somebody who has not perfect attendance. Green still means good, red means bad, and then we have other options as well. If you look at the one there that's blue, if I were to hover over that with my mouse, it says excused. So now part of my job is when I saw that come up, I called the case manager for that person and I said, what does excused mean? Where was Jane Smith on that day? And they said, oh, no, that was us. We had to close the facility that day. So we called Jane and told her not to come. She's not in any trouble. It's not an attendance problem. That was us. It's an excused absence. So the system has the ability, for you to have those understandings as well. We're not here to punish people. We're not here to mess people up if they, their car blew a flat tire, they called the facility and they explained that in advance. We have ways to put in overrides to make sure that, it's timely record keeping, but that it's also fair. So really that is our very quick overview of our system. What we would like to do for you all here is as you sign up with Judge Sawyer's team and with Judge Sawyer's programming, we would like to offer to be part of that programming with you. We would like to work with you in using our system to help you transition into this non-incarceral method of outpatient with good record keeping. And that's why we're part of the Sentencing Foundation project, because we truly feel that with this type of technology, more judges are going to feel more comfortable letting more people not be incarcerated. Thank you, Judge Sawyer. I think we're running out of time, so I'm going to turn this on back to you.
Thank you. So, how that works with the accountability project, they would be part of the establishment unit, right? So that gets folks up and running and get to the seamless portion of where they are. I'm running short of time here, and so I intended to have a few minutes for questions and answers. We have about a good 45 seconds for if there's any one question that we want to have out there. Otherwise, I'll be available outside to answer any other questions, or we'll be over there, and my team is available to answer a few questions, and of course, they will call me in on for the bigger questions. Anybody? Yes, sir. Correct. Cost-free. It is an amalgamation. It is an amalgamation of nonprofit organizations and social services that are provided by the local municipality. And so the job of the Sentencing Foundation is to get a resource, a network for whatever judge wishes to use them of cost-free resources, and anything else that you need in order to begin utilizing the program will be provided by the Sentencing Foundation. And down the line, for wherever there are gap resources, meaning there's not a nonprofit organization that will fulfill the need of the specific requirement that is part of your sentence, part of the comprehensive sentence, gap resources will be provided by the Sentencing Foundation. That's why it's a nonprofit organization. And further down the line, because we found that most of the most efficacious reentry resources are run by formerly criminal justice involved individuals, the small, efficacious reentry resources will have an opportunity to get grants from the Sentencing Foundation as well. So that way we'll be able to make sure that we have all the resources that we need, whether they're for-profits that get the gap resources, or they're the nonprofit, or they're the governmental. They will be a network of reentry resources, all cost-free, provided to the judge inside their binder as soon as they want to get started. Absolutely.